Pull that off with that.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Ful-on, your Fulham-centric football podcast. I'm your host, Ash Woolford. Joining me today for part one of another double header is AJ. How you doing, mate?
I'm doing well, all things considered, Fulham wise, but we'll get into that.
And Mozza, how you doing, buddy?
Yeah, still recovering from our arduous journey up to Wycombe Wanderers, which we'll get into. But yeah, I think I've just about
Still in the
recovered.
car park now, aren't you?
Yeah,
Might as well
yeah.
be.
One of the most painful grounds to get out of ever, considering it only holds like 8,000 people. But we'll moan about that in a bit. Let's talk about the actual football though, because I think that's where we're probably going to whinge the most. And as much as that is, let's get some negatives out the way before we start talking about some positives that may well be coming out of the game. Uh, AJ, the starting lineup and the squad pick for that team, that game should have been strong enough to get the result that we should have got. I know we got through, but the performance weren't that great. Any
Yeah,
any problems you had with that squad? Anything you would have done differently if you could have done?
arguably a lot of it is what I would have expected to see in the previous fixture. Like Bassi and Cuenca felt overly defensive against Wycombe to then concede within 15 minutes anyway, but that's whatever. It just felt like it didn't really give us much creative outlet, and I think we noticed that obviously when we go to make the changes later on, and we'll cross that bridge when we get to it as we go through the game review. But the only one I was genuinely disappointed to see in the lineup was obviously Adama Traore, but then I equally thought, right, this is a League Two opposition. We should League One, League Two. I can't remember what league they're in. I do apologise, Wickham. But they're opposition that Adama should be able to handle at the very least. But hey ho.
Yeah. We'll talk about his performance in a minute because I feel like he's going to get singled out for some treatment. Anyone who was at the game would know the frustrations of having to watch it. Mozza, obviously, we went to the game on Tuesday night. Other than missing kickoff and Wycombe going 1-0 up, uh, the rest of the performance was pretty much all us attacking them and not really being able to score until we actually did. The rest of that first half mainly was quite frustrating to watch. We looked like we were really like not like the players hadn't even trained together, let alone played together. They really, really like stop start and break apart. Even Kevin really struggled to sort of get the ball at his feet and run at people. It was a bit frustrating to watch.
Yeah, but that's pretty much been almost every Fulham game, be it cup or league. Not even this season. Towards the end of last season, hasn't it? I mean, what's changed? In terms of like how frustrating it is as a fan to watch us not take the opportunities that we have got. Um, I I think I might make this the last time I say it. Well, I can't. I'm not. I'm not going to promise it. But the amount of back passing to the goalkeeper. Sorry, Lecomte. Who we'll come to him later. He was very good. But they do this with Leno. And I've complained about it before, and I know, Ash, you've told me it's a tactical decision. I just still can't get my head around it, and I was stood next to you, and I was very vocal. I think a lot, well, about 99% of the Fulham fans that went to Wycombe were very, very, very vocal. Some language I can't even repeat that was aimed at Adama, which is, a bit poor form from us. But my point is, why does our keeper, whoever it is, if it's a goal kick or if it's been back passed and he's got time on the ball, puts it on the line, 6-yard box, passes it to either Diop or Bassi, who is always usually about a metre away, who then passes it back to our keeper to then boot it upfield. Why? What? You like? I'm not having a go. I'm not having a dig at you here, Ash. Like, can you explain to me, or AJ, if
Yeah,
that
I
is a
can actually.
tactical decision? What's the function behind it? Because if the keeper's just going to boot it upfield and let the opposition press, I understand. Yeah, maybe they're trying to like sort of counter attack. Is that it? Just boot it upfield. But we
No.
always do it when we're behind. If we've conceded a goal, we're 1-0 down to Wycombe, and the amount of times I saw players like they looked frustrated, like or heads in their hands, and they weren't creating space, like or making runs. I can't think of another synonym for the word frustrating overall, really, to be honest, mate. Yeah, there's an awful lot to unpack. I think I could write a short book about it, really. But it was same old Fulham. Yeah, not taking the opportunities that we had. I've got to say, Wycombe, that yeah, they were a very good side, and I thought they played well. Fair play to them.
I agree. I thought Wycombe were very well organised. I think getting that early lead meant that they sat back and we struggled to break them down. You know, the whole reason why we sort of take those short goal kicks is because we're trying to entice them to push up the pitch a little bit so that we can have some space behind the back. The problem is it's all right if you do that, but not if you do it every time you get a goal kick. You need to you need to have some variation. You need to go long every now and then, just so that they're aware that you're going to do it or you can do it, and it isn't the same thing over and over again. You know, the way that especially Premier League football works is that like the space that you can create further up the pitch helps create space in midfield too. And I understand that, but when you're playing against a League One team who, as well organised as they are, you should have the beating of in every single position on the pitch. You know, it isn't good enough. Like, it was very frustrating to watch. One of the things that bothered me most, especially in the end, that coming to the end of that first half, when it was all us attacking, was that 3 or 4 times Rail got the ball out on the ran and got the ball out on the wing, and then there's no one in the middle, so he's having to play the ball all the way back to the halfway line to create time so he can get into the middle. So all of the hard work of them playing that long ball over the top, which he's done well to win, it's just been completely pointless. I don't understand about trying to stretch teams and trying to make movement and stuff like that, but it was very, very frustrating. What doesn't help is that a couple of the players genuinely looked like they didn't know what they were meant to do. You know, you spoke about Adama, and you know, as bad as Adama was, and trust me, talking about language used against him, most of it was used by me. Like, and I probably would own an apology if he was there in front of me. But like, it was one of those ones that it was just like you're faster, you're bigger, you're quicker. You're a Premier League player and you have been for a long enough time. So technically, you have your levels above your position. And it's the second game in a row in the cup where he's been completely pocketed by a League One defender. It's not good enough. Like, it's frustrating. Kevin Kevin was a bit frustrated in that first half too. He improved massively in the second half. I think Cess coming on and Bassi moving over greatly helped that. But in the first half, he 3 or 4 times, it almost like he felt like it was on him to try to create something, and he tried a bit too much, and then lost the ball, and that was a bit frustrating. The first half is just completely frustrating. The only word to describe it is frustrating. Wycombe have one shot on target, they score from it. And, you know, no shock it's Cordy Woodrow who scores it. No shock it's an absolute brilliant finish, because everyone knows how much I rate Cordy Woodrow and his finishing,
Yeah,
right?
great goal.
But
Great goal.
yeah, yeah. Shame I had to watch it the next, like, after the game, because we couldn't get in on time to watch it because, you know, trying to drive into the stadium was a nightmare. But but then the second half comes on. We make some tactical substitutions, and AJ, we've talked to you about, like, the subs we make at halftime. Tess comes on. Cuenca goes off, which I understand was actually due to maybe a knock that Cuenca had that hasn't 100%
It's
been
always down
confirmed.
to a knock, apparently, when we do a halftime
Yeah,
substitution.
you don't want to have that.
God forbid
For
Marco does
me,
something tactically, right?
yeah. What's weird for me is that I thought Cuenca was actually playing quite well. I was surprised it was Cuenca that came off and not Bassi, because I thought
Yeah.
Bassi had a bit of a mare in that first half.
He was
Um,
reluctant to play.
yeah. I think I was a bit odd. It was a bit odd for me, especially with such a big Premier League game coming up this weekend. Who, if we're going to be honest, it's more likely to be Bassi starting that game than Cuenca anyway.
Do you think he might be saving
It made
himself
sense.
for AFCON, like injury wise, or or
No,
Unfortunately, this does happen. It happens every year. It happens at the end. We'll see it at the end of the year with the World Cup coming up too, where players that are potentially going to the World Cup, they'll go in within themselves a little bit because they don't want to be injured for a tournament. I understand. I do understand that it's massive for him and it's massive for Nigeria, but ultimately, it's no good for us if we're going to see performances like we've seen. You know,
yeah.
you could potentially have the same argument about Alex Iwobi in a couple of games, but the one thing I will
Oh
give
yeah.
Alex Iwobi is that he does try hard. Like, let's go back to what we're talking about though. The sub that's made at half
yeah,
time, AJ. Cess comes
yeah,
on, it completely rejuvenates that whole left hand side because I think his
yeah.
support for Kevin gives Kevin a boost as well. And we look so much more dangerous in every position except from on the right wing. But no, what was your view after the sub had made at half time?
Yeah, I think it was a necessary substitution. Again, I was a little bit surprised Cuenca went off instead of Bassi, but when Bassi did move into the centre back role, he was a little bit more of himself. He was a lot less aggressive than he normally is in the Premier League games that we've seen him at left back. And I think the last fixture sort of knocked his confidence. Those mistakes that were a result of him playing around at the back meant that he was basically sitting as a third centre back the entire first half of the game, which wasn't offering Kevin any support. So once again, Kevin's in one of these League Cup games where he's 2-on-1 in every single man. He beats the first man, there's a second man to clean up after him, and it makes him look frankly pocketed, which I don't necessarily think is the case, because if you need two defenders to deal with any one player, it's hard to say that you've pocketed him, if you get what I mean.
Yeah,
But
no,
once we had Cess on the overlap, it was much clearer that Kevin had the opportunity to either go outside, go inside, play quick 1-2s. There was plenty and plenty for Kevin to be able to do and utilize other players and take away some of that pressure on himself. Especially the pressure he was probably feeling when every time he switched play over to Adama Traore, either failed to control it or controlled it and instinctively insisted on standing still until the defender came up to him and then tried to take the defender on one from a standstill, as opposed to receiving the ball and playing goddamn football.
yeah, it
It,
was
it,
frustrating.
it,
I obviously we have one good, brilliant bit of play in that whole second half, right? Which is obviously the corner where we score from Josh King, who I think in the Premier League would have won a penalty the amount of time, the amount he's been pushed. Like he's
yeah,
being rear-ended basically. Like it's really bad. But to have the wherewithal to sort of backheel it and score the way he did, brilliant finish by Josh.
Zlatan-esque.
Um, and for it to be his first goal, we all know it's not his first goal, but that be
Yeah.
his official first
Second. Yeah.
professional goal. Uh, it is a great finish. The frustrating thing that obviously then comes is even with the subs that we make, we bring on some bigger players. We bring on Iwobi, we bring on Lukic, you know, we tried to sort of win back the midfield area, and we were fully in charge for the rest of that second half after we made it 1-1. Wycombe were just the only game Wycombe were trying to play was trying to not go behind. And I will add, they did brilliantly. They defended brilliantly, but
Yeah.
we looked completely clueless on how to break down a League One team. And it's really worrying because we had this discussion loads last season about how There's a reason why Fulham beat the teams at the top of the table so much last year and lost against teams underneath us. And that's because if you want to win against Fulham, take the one chance you'll get in a game and then just let Fulham come at you. Because when we have to attack you, we can't do it. And it's really worrying. We've been saying this now for 18 months straight, that Fulham cannot beat a low block. Fulham cannot beat any team that basically goes, bring it on. Because we're used to say it. And what was really frustrating during the game on Tuesday night was Adama, because he was either on his arse because he slipped over, running the ball out of play, or just completely mistouching everything. And then the 3 or 4 times he did manage to get a decent cross in, they were just really hitting hopes. And we've gone back to doing those floaty balls into the box, just hoping someone's at the end of it. And then the 3 or 4 times that someone was at the knockdown or the breakdown, it would land at someone's wrong foot who just then wouldn't take the shot on. I think we were really losing our patience with the inability to just take a shot. I don't think there's any football team in the world who are as bad in that, like, the edge of the box D than Fulham are. Because we won't take a shot on. We just will not take a shot on. It's really, really frustrating, and it needs to improve. And if we're going to get anywhere this season, forget if we're going to be able to get through against Newcastle the next round of the Cup. Forget if we're going to, get into Europe or any of those teams. So we're going to stay in the Premier League this year. We have to start taking chances, and we're really, really poor at it. Let's break down the end of the game though quickly. Obviously, we do make a couple of extra subs. As I say, we bring on Kusiari, who I actually thought played all right. I thought he was trying to make himself busy. He did all right. He looks like he's got a little bit grown into his own body left to do, but I wasn't too disappointed with him in the performance he gave coming on. He was trying to be in the right place, trying to do the right thing. A lot of things that we saw with Rodrigo Muniz at the beginning of last season, where you could tell that when he was coming on for Real, he was basically trying to carbon copy what Real was doing, just not to the same effect. And that's basically what he did. And you can't moan about it because he's still a young player learning his trade. People forget that he's 18 just because he's coming for Bayern Munich and they want to see him play. But I thought he did all right. Wycombe did what they had to do to hold on and get the game to go to penalties. The penalty situation is obviously where we have to finish talking about the game. I fully respect players that have to take penalties and come up to take penalties. I was a bit disappointed with Cessi's penalty to win it in normal 5 penalties was really poor. But he's Cess, so he's not going to get battered for it. He just missed a penalty. It is what it is. I really think it's unfair to make a young striker, who's had 37 minutes total playing time for you, take a penalty, especially if it's the decider. Would have been great if he'd scored it, but he misses it obviously, and then Diop does the business in scoring the winner. But the real hero of the night, is Lecomte, who obviously we spoke about it pre-game. Mozza wasn't really sure about him. Wasn't really sure how good he was, but other than Cordy Woodrow's goal, he didn't really have much to do during the game. But to not do much in 90 minutes and then perform that well in a penalty shootout shows the quality of a goalkeeper he is. And it's been a while since Fulham have had a number 2 goalkeeper that looks like they might actually be able to stand up when he's needed. And I was really glad to see it. Lads, let's finish this one how we always do. Man the matches. Some honourable mentions if you have any. Mozza, I'll come to you first, mate. Can I have your man of the match and your honourable mention, please?
It's been a hard one to think about, and can I just ask you very quickly where you mentioned our second goalkeeper there? What is the right pronunciation of his name? Because I think I've been saying it wrong. Is it Lecomte? How did you say it? I don't want to offend him or anyone.
I don't you? I think it's Lecomte, but I'm not too sure.
Okay, well, Lecomte.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just don't want to offend anyone, him or the man himself. I'm actually quite tempted to give him man of the match or Joshua King. The goal scorer. I think I'll have to give it to Lecomte. Josh King, he was fire. I say this every time. He's fire every game I've seen him in. he got a lot of knocks last night, and again, broken record. I keep saying, for a smaller lad in stature and for how young he is, he usually gets up. But they were going for him last night. I don't know if the yellow card he got was justified, Ash. I think you saw it better than I did, even though we were stood next to each
Oh
other.
no,
But do you remember it?
it was 100% justified. Yeah,
It
it
was, yeah.
was make
Fair enough.
it was make Stefan Johansson proud level of
I remember you saying, right, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, because I haven't rewatched any of the game, trying to PTSD or whatever you call it. But yeah, I think I will say Leconte is my man of the match. Other honourable mentions, Adama Traore. I'm taking the piss. The interesting thing about the penalty shootout, right? And I'm not going to slag off Wycombe, the ground as such, or the staff, or really the fans. It happens in football, but you might have noticed the shootout was taken at the home end, the terrace, and the home fans obviously trying to put off our players, holding up white lights and all that. I wonder if they actually knew what our team colours are, because I felt like that was kind of spurring us on a bit. Like black and white army. I was like, yeah, we're up for it. The players that sort of scored or the players that missed were the ones, well, that you wouldn't have expected to. When it came to Cess, I was gutted for him. I had a feeling he was going to miss. I don't know why. I've talked about this before about how I hate the old, what do you call it? The run-ups that aren't run-ups. Please tell me what the term is. The stutters. And it's put me off Kevin a little bit, which is a shame, because I've really liked him up until then, and I lose respect for players when they do that. But that's just my own personal psychotic pet peeve, or hatred, as you would call it. But when Diop came to take the winning one, I went, oh fuck no! Especially after everything I said about him in the last game. I somewhat take it back. He buried it. He put it away. But anyway, yeah, for me, Leconte man of the match. And God, I've lost my mind. Josh King, yes, as well, as my honourable mention. Are we still there? Hello, everyone.
I'm still here. I'm just waiting to hear from Ash.
Okay. I think you got bored of me.
I paused the recording. Give me 1 second.
Sorry, I rambled there.
Yeah, you're fine.
Come on.
Giving Ash a little bit of editing to do tonight.
Yeah, no, I agree. Mozza. I think it's a great shout, really. I think it is what it is. I think you're a bit of an old man when it comes to the started penalty shootouts, but whatever. Like, what I do think is quite funny is,
Not
if
as
you
old
think
as
you're
you.
going to put Sasha Lukic, someone who's taken a penalty for Serbia when playing against Albania, off by shining some lights at him when he's had lasers and stones thrown at him while doing it. You've got another thing coming. But hey, it was a good attempt by them, I guess. AJ, how about yourself, mate? Man the match and honourable mentions, please.
I'll get through my honourable mentions first. I think Sessegnon deserves one. Changed the game when he came on at half time. Very influential. I think Kevin deserves one for his second half performance, whether or not that was because of Sess or not. He was a different player in that second half, and it was clear. A lot of people won't actually realise, but he was the one that assisted the goal for Josh King, who is my third honourable mention. And then man of the match has to be one more honourable mention in Diop, for saying fuck this shit, I want to go home, and absolutely burying it into the top corner. And then the obvious man of the match is Leconte. It has to be. Like, anyone that saves 3 penalties in a penalty shootout is by far a clear man of the match.
Yeah, it's hard to argue, really, isn't it? I think you're right. I think Cess's sub coming on completely changed the game. It just gave us a bit more structure on that left-hand side. I think that structure helped Kevin immensely, which obviously Kevin would be one of my honourable mentions too. Josh King obviously deserves all the praise in the world for the finish to his goal. That's a great bit of, makeshift football considering what was going on in front of him. And you could tell after the game he was very proud of the fact he'd managed to do it. But it has to be, yeah. Lacan has to be. You can't say 3 penalties in the quality that he did, you know, and not be considered for it. We're through to the next round because of his ability to save penalties in the penalty shootout. And after a cold 97 plus minutes, whatever there was added on, you know, it's easy to sort of not be that good. So he deserves it. Lads, thank you very much for joining me for this review of the Wycombe game. We'll be back at lunchtime today with our Wolves preview. So join us for that if you are going to that game as well. That'd be good. Feel free to let us know your views on who you think should be man of the match and some of the performances that happened in this Wycombe game in the comment section. We'll see you though at lunchtime for our Wolves preview.